Today, we're diving deep into a vital but often overlooked layer of Africa's trade ecosystem, and that is payments. Moving money across African borders, whether to settle trade deals, fund logistics, or enable services, remains more complex than it should be. Joining us is someone who has worked at the intersection of commodity trading and financial infrastructure. Nathaniel Agama, CEO of Brydge.
For an importer, we'll take it step by step in terms of the different point of views for each business. So for a business that's importing within the African ecosystem, they're worried about payments. How do I, pay my suppliers efficiently, timely, and reliably in a way that is also consistent. For that importer as well, they're also worried about finding the right vendors or suppliers that they can get the best quotes and rates from, especially if you're trading within Africa again. And then the business that is importing is also worried about the logistics of it. How does it get to me? How would it come to where I am? And then in between all of that is the tracking. Where is it at? What have we done? What haven't we done? And that bit. But it looks a little bit different for a business that is exporting out of Nigeria to maybe other African countries. For that business, you are worried about where do I find reliable buyers, reliable off-takers, excuse me, and then that exporter is also worried about how do I collect payments. Largely, within trade in Africa is still very USD based.
Yeah.
And the reason is not far-fetched. The reason is just because as a business here in Nigeria, first off, I can't collect Ghana cedis from you. It's a lot easier to say you go convert your Ghana cedis to US dollars and then use that to pay me, because then at least there are domiciliary accounts that I can use to receive that. And also aside from that, there's also a macroeconomics that comes to it, where you are worried about the FX changes of if I'm holding Ghana cedis and then tomorrow it falls off, what's the problem with that, or Kenyan shillings, or whatever the case may be, or Nigerian naira. So we've seen how it goes up and down. So it's a lot easier to just trade with dollars, because US dollar is US dollar anywhere. So yeah. So those are so you all kind of so why I took out the time to just explain the point of views from two different lenses is that both of these persons I just explained, or businesses, are Nigerian businesses, but they have a different problem across, depending on what they are trying to do, whether they're exporting or trying to import.
And it's the same for other African countries?
Yes. If you look at it from other lens, same thing, a Ghanaian business trying to maybe sell into Nigeria, they're worried. I don't have an NIN to get a bank account here in Nigeria, so how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I trade with them? And if I'm going to sell in USD, would the Nigerian business be comfortable going to go source USD just to make payments? So,
Okay, so speaking of payments, I think that somehow moving money is much more complex than actually moving goods across borders or within Africa. So how does payments interoperability slow down the deals between African countries?
So I think that I beg to differ that but payment is easier. I think both are difficult. If you really think of it in the granular scale of it all, yeah, all just depends on the lens you're looking at it from. But we're talking about intra-Africa trade first off, and we're talking about 42 different currencies across 52 countries, across over 42 different means of payment. But at least you can say maybe the core ones are 7 or 8. But I always like to, at every point in time I speak about intra-Africa trade, I like to think of it like you're educated, just so that people can understand and really value what the problems are. So for instance, if you're in Ghana and you have a mobile money. When people talk about mobile money, it also feels like mobile money is mobile money everywhere, but it's not. Mobile money in Ghana is not the same for mobile money in Kenya. Right? They are mobile monies, but they're not the same thing. And I still can't move mobile money from Ghana to Kenya, even though it's mobile money, right? So it's not the same. And even within, like, say, for instance, if you now go to Francophone regions, like in Kenya, in Cameroon, Ivory Coast, and the likes, moving money across those parts is a lot easier, is a bit easier, but the networks that they have are independent. Say network A can't move money to network B, even though network A and network B are both mobile money networks, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names, but I think those are the kind of things that you see. So yes, interoperability like slows down payment because systems that are supposed to be speaking to each other are not, and then it just kind of makes it difficult for you to really just do the things that you're supposed to do without worrying about, oh, what mobile money do you have, or what other mobile money does this other guy have. Same things with bank transfers. Just because you have bank A in Nigeria that is also present in the other country doesn't essentially mean that because that person has that bank account in that same country that you can move money from here to them. It's not the same thing, because all of them are also like working in their own silos, even though they bear the same name in those countries. So it's not that. So yeah, just wanted to really, because sometimes we'll just really say things like interoperability and stuff like that. Most persons that we might be watching some of these things are not bankers, don't understand what that really looks like. But when you paint this picture that, case in point, why we're going far in Nigeria, a DOM account within a bank, a USD account that is not within that same bank, you can't move US dollars from bank A to bank B. Yeah, so that just explains.
Okay. So speaking of payment systems between countries, so the AfCFTA recently introduced the PAPPS card. So how does that work exactly? Is it like, oh, I have my debit card here, or I'm a Nigerian going to maybe Ghana, and I have that debit card. Will I be able to use it with my Nigerian naira in another country? Is that how it works? Or what's
Yes. Like I earlier said that money is not moving, right? So that your Nigerian naira is supposed to still be of value anywhere, because it's just a thing of what's the conversion of naira to Ghana cedis. So it's for the central banks. That's now where the PAPPS thing now coming, like the Pan-African Settlement System, where the Ghanaian Central Bank and the Nigerian Central Bank are the ones holding the ledgers of this is how much Ghana is owing Nigeria, this is how much Nigeria is owing, and then they're balancing each other's out, reconciliation and all of that, right? So the card is just to say, you have your Nigerian PAPPS card with your naira in it, you go into Ghana, you just tap, it's the switch, which is PAPPS, will then convert your naira, debit your position, and then credit the local merchant in Ghana cedis.
So you necessarily don't have to move like money or then convert first.
Yeah,
and all
it takes off that whole need for cash.
Yes. Okay, but then for that to be possible, there has to be like the AfCFTA.
Yes,
So it's meant to not just, when we talk about trade, trade is not just importing and exporting. It involves movement of goods, services, people, and all that. So I have to be able to be in that country for me to be able to use my PAPPS card.
Yes.
And that brings us to the problem of visas, being able to travel within Africa itself. So that's a problem on its own. So what do you think it's actually the main, will I say the main cause or the main trigger for that? Like
For visas,
issues, yes, issues between traveling between countries. But what's the main thing there?
Your questions can sometimes put me in a political problem.
Yeah.
But I would speak from what I know, right? Where there are 8 protocols from the AfCFTA region, and one of that is, access to free tariffs for goods or free or low tariffs for products that are moving within the continent.
Oh,
And what that just means is that, okay, if I'm importing something from Ghana, I shouldn't pay the same custom duty or tariff as someone who is importing someone from China and all of these other countries, right? Just to also improve, the need to get those type of products from within the continent. Like I already highlighted, where Kenya used to do a visa on arrival or electronic visas for Nigerians, and now they've moved to at least 60 days free, I think, free visas. So my assumption, I would like to put it that way for people who would pick it up, is that this conversation, this whole after thing, after agreement, it would lead more countries to then have a lot more interpersonal relationships, especially if you know that I'm trading a lot, like Nigerians are trading a lot with Kenya, Nigerians trading a lot with South Africa, right?
Yeah.
If I'm trading a lot with you, then there has to then be that more or less, like how best to put it would be, lowering of requirements to come into the country if I'm already trading with you. So those conversations would kind of like come off the bat that trade is already happening and after is in place, right? So that's my assumption, that we'll see a lot more countries lower their expectations as far as like other African countries, so that they can also promote the products that they have, and they can also allow more persons come in to see the country, experience their products, and then buy from them. And this is also very great when you see things like Rwanda allowing a lot of countries go to them. You see there's a lot of trade happening with those regions and things in that regard. So off the back of the AfCFTA project, more countries, more unions, more trade blocks. There's an ECOWAS trade block, there's a SEWA trade block. So those trade blocks will start speaking to themselves, and then within the AfCFTA agreement, and then start finding ways to allow each other move money or move people, move, maybe instead of it to be like free for tourism, but if you're doing business in these countries, it's a free visa, you don't need to, so things like that.
So you mentioned the ECOWAS bloc and all of that. So I think, was it last year when Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria, they had to leave the ECOWAS. So for trade within those blocks, now that means they are now excluded from those trade, will I say,
the trade
advantages?
Treaties, yes.
So how then does trade between those countries now, how does it now become?
Okay, no, so like let's go back a bit, right? The North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA, covers all of North America, but there are still trade blocks within North America, right? That happens in their own small niches. Yes, North America.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I'm coming back to Nigeria. So I wanted to use that to establish what I want to do now, because it always feels like when we speak about Africa Free Trade Agreement, it feels like it's new. But these things have, always existed. We're just starting ours today, right? So the Africa Free Trade Agreement is an agreement that covers all of Africa. So those blocks exist under this new agreement.
Okay.
Right? They exist under this new agreement. So the AfCFTA thing covers all 54 countries that have signed the treaty to do the free tariffs and do the whole 7 stuff. So whether you left the small or the block of ECOWAS, as long as you've signed that treaty, you're part of the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. You're no longer part of the blocks, but you're now part of this thing. And what my assumptions would also say is that this Africa Free Trade should supersede whatever blocks has been created, because the whole idea was to have a North Africa bloc, a Southern Africa bloc, a Western Africa bloc, and all of that, East African blocks and stuff. But that, created these fragmentations that we are seeing. So if we're all one continent, all one people, then let's have, just that one block that speaks to ensuring that, the smaller guys are benefiting from the resources of the bigger guys are benefiting from the labor of the smaller guys. So that way we all are moving and enriching each other.
Oh, okay. So I think recently, I think or just recently, so too, I think between South Africa and Tanzania, there were these clashes, trade clashes between them. So one country was like, oh, we're not going to accept this from this country, and then the other one was like, oh, we're not trading this from this country because you stopped trading with us.
Yeah.
So in that case, what this AFC,
TLT.
what now happens? How do they come in, or how does that settle things?
Yes. So I think it will always happen, right? Just because there's a trade agreement doesn't essentially mean that we all would be all kumbaya or like, hello, everything is good, right? Bear in mind that this Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement started 5 years ago, like the official agreement started 5 years ago. It took 1 year for all countries to then go back, rewrite their constitution as far as like border controls and everything. And then it took another 1 year for all of them to review and agree, and another 1 year for them to sign their treaties. And then just, if my memory serves me right, like 4 months ago, that the first shipment from Nigeria left under the AfCFTA agreement. Oh. So, so it's not going to just happen overnight. Like it's not just going to be like, oh, just because there's an agreement, all of a sudden, I want to open up my borders, everybody should just come in and do whatever they like. So there's just going to be that phasing of, okay, these things fall within the Africa Trade Agreement, this doesn't, or these are gray areas that need to be ironed out. There will always definitely be trade wars. We already see one that America and China had. Those countries had a trade agreement before, so that's pretty much like what we are doing, where there's a trade agreement, there's a handshake that we should do this, tariff should be here, but you should expect that where there are interests, conflict should happen. So yeah, so in terms of that, in regards to that, those cases would then go to the Africa Free Trade, maybe Parliament or something to iron them out and smoothen them out, because they are also, like I mentioned, like there are protocols for how would information be stored. There are protocols to how women and youth should participate in that conversation. There's also a protocol for how this, that, and that. So all those protocols speak to this. So I'm making an assumption that there should be a protocol that speaks to conflicts and resolutions between different countries. So yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So, but then it affects the traders in that country that are maybe not directly under the AfCFTA. Then they are trading. So having those kind of, or maybe at that point there's now like border restrictions between each country. So how then, or how do these traders now have to deal with those kind of things?
Again, I like that there's already a precedent around that where China, Nigeria, China, America, right? They were having problems. It was their president too. Their presidents were the ones giving tariffs up and down. But the guys who were actively trading were not able to move things because then when the big guys fight, the small guys have to adjust. It is what it is. So yeah. Then the other thing that could just happen would be you trading within outside the confines of that agreement, where again you put me in tight spots, but where, like, let's say for instance, if Nigeria is banned from supplying XYZ to say another country, right, some farmers can move those goods through Niger and then supply from Niger to that country. Yes.